Definitions of terms for singing. We're going to be covering some definitions that I want to go over with you, and these are the basics on the front side, and we're going to increase these as we go. And as I said, my goal isn't to bog you down with a bunch of technical stuff that you're never going to remember, but these terms are very important because I'm going to refer to them back and forth, and some of these terms mean different things to different vocal coaches or students depending on what walk of life you come from. But I've simplified them to a point where when I refer to them, you'll know what they mean, so that you're not caught later going, gosh, what did he mean by tessitura or prima passaggio or the glottis or vocal folds or just all these different terms. So I'm not going to go through a zillion of them now. They'll increase as we go and I'll explain them as we go. But the first thing is range. What is your range? Well, it's the total spectrum that you can sing from your bottom note to your top note and what range you have on your vocal folds or chords, okay? So you have a specific amount that goes from one end to another, and we're going to try to stretch and grow this, both ends, to increase this, but it's the notes that your body can produce, okay? The second thing is you're going to hear me refer to adding weight to the sound, weight, or dramatic effect, volume. Now, volume could mean different things too, and we're going to get into that as we discuss things like compression, because sometimes you can add certain weight into a sound with too much air, and I'm going to say I want you to compress or use glottal compression, or in a distorted sense, hyperglottal compression, to be able to mitigate or control that air. But so weight is going to be the amount of volume that we add, hey, or in a soprano, right? Different weights of that sound back and forth, a dramatic effect. Now, the size is the amount of sound that your body can produce in totality, and I won't use that term too much, but we'll discuss that at some points. Now, the tessitura, or the most comfortable part of your singing range, is also going to change, because as you grow your voice over time, your tessitura should change. So you're not resigned to one tessitura, though you'll start with one, and then that tessitura should increase as you increase your range and toolbox for singing. Now, I'll refer to timbre, vocal timbre, or color. Now, that's usually the brightness or the different color of the sound of the voice. So I'll say, get a brighter timbre. If I'm doing E vowel, for example, and I say, he, and I say, get a nice bright timbre to that sound. If I say, don't cover that sound, don't darken or color, I'll refer to different things, so I'm trying to instruct you on what to do and what not to do, directly related to these terms themselves. Now, transition points are points usually, and by the way, again, these terms mean different things to different people, but I'm going to refer to different things that are going to start out with transition points, referring to what is called your speech level singing register. That's the level that I'm talking to you at now. Your call or your belting register, which is as I'm calling out, hey, hey, right? And then your upper mid-voice register, which is the upper spectrum of that, on into your head voice. Now, head voice is another example. I like to interchangeably use the term head voice for my falsetto or reinforced falsetto, or a falsetto I've grown to match in sound, the sound of my chest voice. In a classical sense, head voice is actually usually referred to any level that refers, as we ascend to a scale or a passage or something that resonates in the head. But I actually like to refer to it, I like to change it out. Instead of using the word falsetto, a falsetto sound could be anything from real fluty sound to a nice bright timbre, right? So, right? So I like to keep things simple. So when I refer to head voice, it's usually I'm talking about the falsetto register. Now, these are also different from male to female. The registrations are different. There's another term, registrations, which is also vocal registers, right? These focal points are transitional points. So now registration is different. So I'm going to demonstrate for you from going from my speaking register into my call register into my head voice register. Three, quote, different, I'm going to call these registrations, okay? Now, I'm going to do it where you will not hear me have the register breaks. But there's at least two, in some cases three, but two. There's what's called prima passaggio, which is the passageway from my speaking register, speech level register, into my call register. So I'm going to kind of shift gears out of my speaking register, going from first gear into second gear into my call register. And then I'm going to go from my call register and I'm going to kind of put in the clutch and I'm going to go into my head voice register. But you're not going to hear these breaks. Now, I'm going to demonstrate what the breaks would sound like first. There's kind of a little shifting that happens into the call register. You'll feel it, like you'll be doing your scales, you'll be going along, gosh, it's kind of weird. In the lower register, just as I'm going into my belting register, I feel a tug in my throat, and I've got to figure out a way to get past that. We will discuss that. And then when I go for my call register, my belting register, on into my head voice, there's that really awkward, super awkward segundo passaggio, or second passageway. Hey, that yodeling effect that you hear. Now, we're going to train the voice to stay, or the throat to stay completely open, to fuse that sound together to sound something like this. Hey! Right? You didn't hear any of those breaks. So we're going to train the voice. And then when I went up into my head voice, it didn't say, hey! It wasn't that real fluty, airy falsetto sound, because I've trained my head voice, or my falsetto, to match the tone or the timbre of my chest sound to create one long, powerful note, okay? Now, there are physical characteristics, there's age, there's experience, there's all kinds of different things, and we've just discussed that there's different types of vocal fox, or vocal types. Now, there's sobre, there's, by the way, in the soprano register, in fact, we just discussed there are 25 of them. There's lyric, there's dramatic, there's lyric soprano, there's a spinto, there's different color mezzo. We can discuss all these different dramatic for males, low contralto, counter tenor, lyric tenor, acting tenor, dramatic tenor, lower tenor. And I can go into all these different baritone, dramatic baritone, which I told you which I was classified as, a character baritone, character bass, acting bass, heavy acting bass, serious bass. There's all these different vocal fox, or how we would characterize a specific vocal type. We'll discuss some of those as we go, but I'm really going to stick to three main topics, which is just going to simply be baritone, tenor, lower, mid-tenor. I may bring in alto or contralto and soprano. So I said three, really actually four, okay? I'm not going to break down all the individual characteristics of them all, because I believe that we can reside in and out of a lyric tenor and a spinto, for example, which I can go in and out of different color and power and strength. So weight and size and the tessitura will change. Now, I know this sounds like a lot. Bear with me. I'm not going to get crazy on technical terms with you, but I just want you to understand that there's different personalities, there's different sizes of people. Some people were tall for playing volleyball and basketball, and some people are short, like Messi, who's a great soccer player. But these can also change. It's like the little dog that runs across the field really fast. How is it that those little legs can match a big dog's legs and keep up, for the most part, at the same speed? So we'll discuss that with the voice, how we're going to be able to change all the different vocal characteristics or the vocal fox or types within our voice, okay? So I wanted to cover this first. We're going to be getting into more of this in detail, but this will be the definition of terms, and we'll start from here and we'll move on. Here we go.